Yes, Spurs fans, breaking news. Good news, in my opinion, but of course, we'll discuss why we think it's good news in our respective opinions. But Sonny looks to be staying. This is coming from, I believe, an Asian football expert here, Han Jun, footballasian.com, saying exclusive. Football Asian first revealed in June that LAFC, Los Angeles FC, were eyeing Son Heung-Min as a future target. On July 3rd, they confirmed that LAFC have open talks with Spurs, but our latest info is saying that Son has decided to stay one more season in North London. He'll meet Thomas Frank next week to finalize plans. His goal, one last shot at Champions League glory. I actually think that's the great little tab towards the end there. And I wonder if that is, a convincing reason for maybe why Sonny could be sticking around, right? Being able to play one last season of Champions League football at the club that he's been so loyal to after achieving success. It could be a bit of a swan song, final season, at the club where we get to sort of, wish him off and, give him the love that he deserves, instead of it kind of ending in the way that it did. Obviously, ending with the trophy is fabulous, but be nice to have, another season just to sort of
Mm.
send him off in a proper manner. But Dave, I was joking to you at the back end. This also means, one less signing for Daniel Levy, this summer. But we all
Mm.
thought that Sonny was going to leave. There are plenty of rumors suggesting that he was going to leave. This source is kind of saying that maybe those rumors were true, that he could be leaving this summer, but turns out he's made his decision to stay, and I'm happy for it.
No, I'm absolutely delighted on this one, Jack. What makes me sort of happy around it is I genuinely don't think it's money related. It's not like I reckon he could probably get more at LAFC, or they'd push the butt out and sort him out in bonuses and stuff to help boost whatever wages they can give him and supplement it and stuff. So it's not a money decision by Son. It's footballing decision, which I absolutely love, which tells me he feels like he's got another year in him and he's hungry for it. And in a way, last season was a bit bittersweet because it was probably one of his most disappointing
Yeah,
seasons at
yeah,
Tottenham in recent years. But it ended with him lifting that Europa League Cup and him and Ben Davies being the only two from the Pochettino era that sort of more or less Son. Ben Davies doesn't count because he's been on periphery, but stayed around and actually wanted to try and deliver a trophy here for the fans. So he earned the right to make his decision on what he wants to do. Now, wanting another crack at Champions League, I mean, this is what worries me a little bit. Like, it's like everyone from the outset can tell we don't have the squad to go and win the Champions League. And we're not going to do what we done last season where we're going to fob off the league for the sake of a European campaign. So that then puts more pressure on Daniel Levy to open the checkbook, bring in the players here that can drag us to that caliber and try and make Son's final year that swan song.
yeah.
But I'm expecting big things from Son now that he wants to say. I feel like he's sort of motivated to a large degree that he wants to sign off on a really good campaign. Because what I don't want is Son whimpering out of Tottenham like Jan Vertonghen did, like
Yeah.
Hugo Lloris did to a certain degree. I want him to leave, and I want him to be remembered for the Son that he was for the last 6-7 seasons before last season.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like he, as a player, wants to just have one last season. This might even, to put the word selfish on it, would be a bit of a harsh word to use, but I wonder if he, in his own way, wants to have just one last opportunity to play at the highest level, and the highest level is the Champions League. And if he feels like he has an opportunity to do that, why not take it, right? Why not have just one last season playing in the Premier League, playing at your football club? It
Yeah,
is his football club, and it is in the Champions League, right? And it's been a while since Spurs have been in the Champions
yeah.
League. Let's be honest, right? We got a little bit used to it at some point, as Spurs fans during that period
Took it
with
for granted.
Pochettino. Conte got us in there. We kind of took it for granted, like you just said there. And I wonder if Sonny, for his own reasons, if he kind of is recognizing and acknowledging he's reaching towards the end of his career, he might think, you know what, World Cup coming up, I probably want to be,
Yeah,
playing at the highest level
yeah.
possible, just for your own career, for your own, I guess, yeah, just your own, just sort of aspirations, if you will, looking for the right word
Well, I
for it.
think
But yeah,
what you mean there, Jack, is he'll want to be in prime condition, to give
hmm
himself the best shot heading into that World Cup. If he
yeah,
moves out to LAFC, there could be a case with the fixture schedules and stuff like that. That it's look, I don't want to degrade the MLS, but it is a bit of
Feel
a
free.
lower down towards like the Premier League. It is a much more different sort of easier game for Son to be to a large degree. So going into that World Cup, he'll probably be questioning his fitness. So, he probably wants to stay at the top of his game and be at the last level, knowing this probably is going to be his last World Cup.
Yeah, and it's I think all those reasons that you just mentioned there. You also wonder, like, with the transition into Thomas Frank, Sonny could be that ambassador, for that transition,
Mm,
sort of welcome him into the club, kind of be still that voice around the dressing room. We kind of all recognize he's kind of one of those nice guy type of leaders, that
mm,
everybody just really likes and respects. But Thomas Frank, a lot of pressure on him, to come into the club. You're seeing rumors of departures of Romero, people like that. You just wonder, having a guy like Sonny around for just one more season, Thomas Frank is the new manager. You'd kind of welcome that, just a guy to sort of
mm.
ease, the transition, make it so that, the pressure maybe isn't all on you, this whole time as well. So, um, I mean, question maybe Dave is about maybe the captaincy though. Like, would you have him, be the captain for the last remaining season, or would you give it off to Romero, for this remaining season? I guess that's a big decision for Thomas Frank, but
Mm,
there are plenty of things to discuss. We're kind of just giving our raw, authentic kind of reaction straight
mm,
away off of the back of this news. But that is a good question that you're asking me there, in
mm.
the chat. I mean, would you think about maybe giving him the captaincy one last season?
The reason why I thought of it when you were speaking there, Jack, about his last season and that is because it's a bit of an interesting situation. I would think if Romero's going to sign on the dotted line in a new contract, you'd like to think that he's either going to demand the captaincy or Tottenham are going to offer them the club captaincy as a sort of sweetener, try and get him to sign on the dotted line. So it's an interesting decision. But look, I think it's probably lined up one more year. Some will go to World Cup. It'll be his last season at Tottenham, and then he'll head off to the sunset, probably to LAFC. So for me, if it is genuine his last year, I probably would look to take the captaincy off him, Jack. I'll be honest. I think since he's got that captain's armband, I do think the weight of the club
Yeah.
weighs on him. And I do think to a degree, sometimes it takes away from his performance. When he
Yeah.
wasn't captain, he didn't have that pressure. He didn't have that burden. He could play with a smile on his face. It's almost since we've given them that captaincy band, the smile's gone.
Yeah.
He's no
Yeah. Yeah.
longer playing with that smile. So for me, I would actually say for the best party of all interests, because I don't think Son is that leader we need in the dressing room. When you've got young guys and you've got guys like Baluma in there and stuff like that, you need a guy sometimes, a Roy Keane sort of guy that will lay down the law. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Look, I'm all for fun and jokes, but when it comes to training, when it comes to getting ready for game day and stuff, don't take the piss. Get in the right frame of mind. I don't think Sonny's that sort of guy. So I actually think beneficial going forward for Son's last season and for Tottenham Hotspur, I would actually take the captaincy armband off him, Jack.
I mean, Thomas Frank, I would trust to make the right decision, for now and for the future on this one. But again, it wouldn't be bad just to have Sonny around, maybe to again help Thomas Frank if need be. Pick the next captain in line. Is it going to be Bentoncourt? Bentoncourt wants to stick around
Mm,
to take that captain's armband. Romero, that could be a reason for him to stay if he's being promised, that captaincy. I know Alistair Gold has more or less suggested that if Romero does stay, he will be lined up potentially to be given that captain's armband. But then there are others, who would want it. There's probably a good list of people who might want that armband. Think about Vicario. He's a guy that's a big leader, seems to talk a lot, seems to have that sort of, I wouldn't call him a Roy Keane, but he has, maybe a modern version of sort of that just intensity, about him and that desire to win and be accountable. And then James Madison, right,
yeah, I was
has
going to
seemed
say that.
to fall in love with the club, it seems like in the last few months or so. He seems to
Too.
really just be making himself a true
Mm.
ambassador and a true face of the club. James Madison. He saw the departure of Harry Kane. He's now seeing potentially in the future the departure of Son Heung-Min. He might look at himself as the new face of Tottenham for the next couple of
I
seasons. So there are
actually,
a few guys in line that might
mm,
want that armband.
on the Madison one, I actually think it do his England credentials very good, being a captain of a Premier League team. But also, I actually think it probably would help Madison mature a little. And then
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that in effect, with that maturity, then I think you'll see his game actually go to a bit of a new level as well. So
yeah.
Madison's an interesting one, but I don't think any manager's going to come in here and go, yeah, he's captain material, he's my captain. But I do subscribe to that theory.
Yeah. I mean, these are just our authentic, raw reactions. Like I said, everyone, we'll obviously discuss this further, definitely on like a panel show, fan show, all that sort of stuff, hoping for more transfer news to come around. But I am, welcoming Son for one more season. I think it'd be nice to just give him a bit of a swan song, for
Yeah.
this final one. Also, just to see maybe if, he can, improve on his numbers, for one last season under Thomas Frank and see where it
Sure.
goes from here. Like I said, I'd give Sonny, I've joked about this many times if people have heard this, I'd give him almost like a Mark Noble sort of treatment, kind of just let him go on his own terms,
Mm,
with the club. I think he kind of deserves that. I understand it's sentimental. I don't really care. I think
mm,
he's a guy that really deserves it. For me, he's a step above Ben Davis. He's a step above, the
yeah.
people that a lot of other people have said, oh, he's a loyal servant, give him whatever he wants. I would say that more with Sonny than I would with other players. He's a
Look,
guy, in my opinion, that you can have that sentimental kind of reason, to keep.
of course,
Yeah.
he's given us some of our greatest memories in life, some of the greatest goals we'll ever remember. Someone like that who actually contributed regularly for Tottenham and not sitting on the periphery, actually deserves that recognition. But last message on this to fans: look, I am of the opinion I do think Son is starting to slow down a little. I do think he's lost that half a yard or that speed over half a yard
Yeah.
that actually made him electric and a lot more dangerous. But I urge fans. Last season, I didn't like how quick people were to turn on Sonny, given the service that he's given to this football club. And I get it, when we're losing games and stuff, it's tough. But I do urge people, try and enjoy this last year of Son,
Well
good
said.
or bad. It could be a case where his legs just completely go, like you going to reach that time. I'm just down up for it. But let's not turn on the guy.
Yeah.
Let's remember, when everyone else bailed, this guy stuck around to bring us home a trophy. So just enjoy it. And let's not get on his case. Even if it is the worst case scenario, still show some gratitude.
Really good final words from yourself there, Dave. I think that's a great place to end on. We'll see you next time, everybody. Smash the like button.
Spurs.
Welcome Sonny back for one more season. We thought he was out the door, but turns out he's not. See you next time, everybody. Come on,
Come
you
on,
Spurs.
Spurs.